Okay, so we're about to measure a bike here, and as we go through our measurement page, this is where we connect to the camera separately. We fill in all the bicycle details for this particular customer. This is my bike set up here, and what we look at is the brand, the model, the year if you have it. Then you can choose here in the drop down the bicycle type, which will then prompt you with different measurement points. So if you look closely at the screen, you have a time trial bike, we have aero bar measurements pop up, or if you look at what we're looking at right now is the road bike, it'll just show the road handlebar. So you can fill out all the details. We've pre-selected the points that we think are the most commonly used. One note here, when you look at the wheel measurement, it's not checked. So this makes a measurement with the assumption that the bicycle is perfectly level to the ground. So when you look at the wheel axles, so if you're measuring across the wheel axle, then this makes the assumption that the bike is level. So if you are measuring a bike that you're not 100% sure of it being level, then you can also connect and click on the 2 points at the wheel axle, which will then change the plane and transform the angle of all the other measurements related to the bicycle level. So if you select the wheels, it will adjust the rest of the bike measurements for you once the measurement is completed. So we'll go through here. I'm just going to add in quickly a couple details of my bike. I'm just going to call it a test measurement so we know that I can delete it later. The stem length, if you choose a positive or negative stem, you can annotate that in the same location with a space. How many spacers? I've got I believe 20 millimeters, and you're just putting the numerical value in as well without any selection of the unit type. So we have a power tap P1 pedal, which the power tap pedal synchronizes with our fit system, and I have an ISM podium saddle, and then I have the Pro Vibe 7S carbon round in size 42. So now that I've selected all my points that I wanted to measure, this is a 2013 frame, I can go ahead right now, connect to the camera. What this is doing is it is initializing the master camera for being set up and calibrated for using the measurement probe. I'm going to come around. Okay, so now we've come into the point where we can start measuring the bike, and the avatar of the bike will fly around in perspective on the screen as to the points you want to capture. So this first part is capturing the measurement plane. As we capture the measurement plane, what we want to do is click through the center of the stem or a point forward on the bike that we know is in the middle. So we always use the stem center. Then we're going to try and best as possible to find a point in the center of the saddle toward the back of the saddle. And what this does is provides the transformation in Z with the bike setup. And then the crank center. So this part is probably the most critical, because if you get it wrong, then this 0 point of the crank center at that point then of course creates this error that is expanded over the handlebar measurement, the seat height. So really important part is going slowly and measuring a crank without a bolt to fix our measurement probe in is probably the most difficult. So what I like to do, I start with the crank on the right side of the bike with the pedal at the back. And with this particular type of crank, This is a Dura-Ace crank. I find the big chainring, and on the inside edge where the chainring is machined, I fix my tool. I click on the button, and then I slowly trace around the screen, around the crank center, sorry. And as you see, the green trace lights up on our measurement screen, and it's basically collecting points. And if we've collected enough points, and you'll see the entire tracing turn green, you can keep going. You don't necessarily need to stop at that point. It's just prompting you that there has been movement that's been made. If you need to go back, so I'm going to retrace that crank. I'm going to set the crank back up at the back side. To go back is to turn the probe in the up direction and click once, and it'll take you back to the last measurement. As we go back to that last measurement, I'm going to go quite slowly, trace around the crank center, and I'm confident I've got enough points now. It'll take me to the next measurement. So the back of the saddle, when we're measuring the seat height, this is measuring literally the length of the saddle. So the farthest point at the back of the saddle you're going to measure, and the most forward point of the saddle you're going to measure, and then you're going to slowly trace through the length of the saddle. So I'm not moving too quickly here. The more points you collect, the better. And what that has done is it's selected the highest point in the first quarter of the saddle and the last quarter of the saddle. And what that is going to measure is, one, the angle, and then as it's passing through the midpoint of the total length of the saddle, it's measuring the highest point that you collected in that high section. So when you're moving slowly, you're going to have more points collected, so you're going to capture the most truest representation of the highest point. At that point, then it's going to, when you've traced the center here, we are calculating through the tracing the center of that tracing. And then that is making our measurement for the seat height. So we've basically measured the front and back, traced the length, and at that point we're measuring approximately somewhere midsection of the saddle to the center of the crank from the tracing. So that will give us an absolute height. It will also give us our seat setback from the center of the crank to the nose of the saddle. Here you see a tracing of the head tube. The head tube, you can notice the tracing. You can also collect a single point. So if I'm confident that I think I've found the stack and reach location, the X and Y of the frame, I can do a single click, or I can trace. Be careful with using the trace function when you have an aero frame or an integrated frame. It's probably better to closely estimate where that stack and reach point of the frame is and do a single click, because you will have better accuracy to the actual X and Y of the frame. This single click is then translating what you've clicked at the frame XY, and it's creating our head tube angle, the virtual head tube angle. The next is our handlebar XY, the handlebar stack and reach, and then we are also going through, we're collecting here slowly, first the handlebar width, then in the same spot near the back of the grip, and to the reach point. And so that's where the person is typically holding. So I'm going to click here. That's this grip position where the customer is frequently out at the brake hoods. And then the final measurement, again, you can trace around the handlebar, and this is finding the bar reach. So from the center in X of the bar to the foremost distance in the reach of the drops. So you can also take here and look over, and I'm going to do a single click in that point. And now we've measured all the critical points, and we've generated some numbers for our bike measurement. So I'll stop the capture and we'll go through those measurements.